I want to start off with our very first scripture, Hebrews 11:6. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. We have to get in this faith life where we will be so obedient and so abandoned to God's will that we will be willing to pray for the impossible and believe for the impossible. But God is only pleased when we have enough faith to understand the vision that He has given us, to understand the dreams that He has given us, and to believe that the promises will come. Hey guys, wanted to just kind of give you guys a quick update of where we're at with the launch of Bloom Church. So much has happened since we announced that we are planning in Barrington, Missouri. We're just so excited. We're going a million miles an hour. Hey guys, Mike here. Just want to give you a quick video update. We're actually on our way to ARC 2.0 Advanced Church Planning Training down in Alabama. We're excited, blessed. Guys, we need your prayers. Be praying for us that we soak in all this information. Can you believe we're turning 3 years old as a church?
It's crazy.
But we're drinking lattes, talking about this thing called Bloom. I remember just starting to even come up with what the name was going to look like, and then what would our church look like and how would it function. I cannot believe we have hit our 5-year anniversary. Man, so much has happened over the last 5 years. It's just mind-blowing to see where we started and where God has taken us in just such a short amount of time. Can you believe we are 10 years old? I mean, 10's a long time, but then when you kind of think back, it's like, it seems like a million years ago, and then it seems like yesterday all in the same time, right? Like, it's what's crazy about when you have reflection on the past. It's just how far you've come, and also how much God's done. And yet sometimes you're like, gosh, I can't believe that felt like a lifetime ago. And then sometimes I think back and I go, felt like just yesterday we were in the Tower Theater. Feels like just yesterday we were walking in the Americana. Feels like just yesterday having launch meetings, coming back from church planning training. And the one thing I've always recognized is when you reflect back on where you've been, it always stirs your faith on where you're going. Right? So many times if you read the Bible calls something called an altar moment. And the altar moment wasn't like moments where you would build an altar that you would sacrifice anything at. It was whenever God would do a big miracle, He would have them build an altar. A lot of times He would position rocks in a certain way that you knew it was man-made formed. And they'd say, why do you do this? He says, because you have to tell your children what happened in this moment. You have to remember for yourself what I did in this moment. You have to remember the miracle that took place here. There's something powerful about when you can reflect backwards. It helps you have a better vision for when you reflect forward and you start dreaming. And so 10-year anniversary, I felt like what's a better way to do that than to look backwards? With a grateful heart, with a heart with almost childlike awe. Man, I can't believe that's where we've been and where we came. And also, I want us to reflect forward where we're going. And so I'm excited. Let's go check out the Barrington. I think that's a cool place to start. That's where we started. That was our first launch meeting before we ever were at church or had a church service. We started meeting with a small group of people in the Barrington. So let's go take a look at the Barrington Hotel. I remember we were doing launch meetings out of our house at first in Ozark. We met with 7 people. That was our very first launch meeting, was with 7 people. And then we started growing a little group of people over there, and we knew we needed to kind of start being in the area we were going to start having our church in. So we started meeting, remember we'd meet in your parents' backyard. And we do like barbecues and grills and all that. And we started meeting in Ernest and Sue's backyard. That was where we were having launch meetings for a couple months. And then we started getting some kids and we started getting more people. And I realized we're kind of running out of space and we probably need something a little bit more invitable that people kind of know where something's at. So I started trying to look around and we finally struck up a deal at the Barrington Hotel. They had 2 conference rooms. And they would let us rent it, and we would go there. We would have launch meetings bi-monthly on a Sunday night. And so bi-monthly on a Sunday night, we'd have launch meetings.
and we'd come to the Barrington Hotel, and we'd have little signs we'd set up outside.
It was when we were branded different still.
Yep.
And we used greens. Remember we'd set out green plastic tablecloths?
Yep. Green plastic tablecloths. That was our green.
Yep.
And we would do blasts on social media, and that was kind of like...
And we actually had people show up.
We had people show up from it, and we met people from the school. Like, our kids were going to school. We met
like
teachers and things of that nature. But I remember we'd come here, and I'd park right here under the awning, and we'd unload all of our launch stuff every week. And then it was our very first time we actually had an official place besides a house to actually meet and kind of share the vision of Bloom Church. The very first meeting spot for Bloom Church, we would have, it seemed so small. It seemed way bigger back then. We'd have tables set up for everybody to be at, and we would have, our colors were green, like Amanda said, so we'd have green tablecloths on it.
This is the room?
This is it. It seems so
it's
small.
It's so small.
Right?
It felt so big back
It felt
then.
big. And we'd have little candies on everybody's table. And they had like a podium. And I would sit at the podium, and I'd use this TV right here. I'd have like our graphics on it. And we didn't do any church services here. What we did is I would talk about the heart of Bloom and the vision of Bloom and what we're gonna look like. We did growth track for the first time in this room. This is what we took everybody through growth track. And it was basically talking about what it was gonna look like as a church growing and what it was gonna look like. And we'd fill up, we probably had 20 something people in this room.
I mean, I feel like we would have at least 4 round tables in here.
We'd have them, one here, one here.
And it felt much
bigger. We watched a
bigger.
documentary in this room about a
the
church
Stephen
plant.
Furtick one.
Yeah, the Elevation Church and their church plant and their launch team. We watched that in this room.
Oh my gosh, this is so crazy.
And was just dreaming about what it was going to look like for us as a church. Gosh, so much memories. This is where we really kind of started shaping what the vision and the mission of Bloom was going to be. Like, we started forming it, right?
This is, I know you mentioned it, but this is where like all the OG people did growth track, which is now Next Step Party, but everyone did that in this room.
Yes. And this is where we kind of really defined, see you bloom into who you're created to be. But back then it was find Jesus.
Find freedom, find purpose, make a difference.
Find Jesus. Man, it's so crazy being here.
This is where we used to do kids' church. Well, ish. I mean, it wasn't really church yet, but we would, we would just kind of leave the tables like this, and we would play like videos for them, and we would have crafts and snacks. It was like the first little taste of kids' church.
Well, that's the thing. We started outgrowing we were meeting at Ernest and Sue's house in their backyard, and we started getting too many kids, so we're like, we need to start having some space that's kind of set up for the kiddos. And that's kind of why Barrington worked so well, because they had 2 rooms. I remember as we're meeting at the Barrington, we're getting closer to our launch date of launching for our first service, and we're still trying to find an actual location for us to meet. And it's like a stress, right? I mean, we called every realtor, we're looking at every building. I'm on every single commercial real estate website could be, and 2 buildings we get fall through. And I'm starting to think, we're never gonna have a place to actually meet for our first service. Like launch day coming, launch day is passing. And then I remember getting a random call from a gentleman. He saw a video that we had filmed, remember that? But it was me casting the vision of what Bloom would be like and what I was praying that God put in our hearts and all of that. And I remember somebody saw that and he called me and he wanted to meet me. And he had a hotel that had a event center in it. So I drive all the way to this hotel, getting excited, thinking I finally found a location. He goes, I didn't even see the hotel yet. I literally pull in the parking lot. He meets me out in the lobby. He goes, yeah, our space is not going to work for you. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. Right? I drove all the way out here. He goes, I just wanted to meet you. And so we kind of met. We talked.
Very nice.
It was nice. And we talked and we had a good, and then he goes, I do know that my hotel won't work, but I do have a couple connections with some theaters in town. Literally, he said, it'll probably be a couple days. I literally get a call that afternoon, and he had gotten in contact with the Hay Goods. and they were owning a building. They didn't have their show in it, but they owned the Americana theater. And they said, they're gonna be calling you. And I remember like this sense of relief and excitement. And I get the call from the Hey Goods literally just a couple hours later. And they're basically like, you wanna use it? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, come on, check it out and come see it. It was like the first time I felt like, oh, this is actually gonna work. Brings back memories, right?
Yeah, so
I remember being so relieved coming into this place feeling like, hey, we get to actually have a church. And what's crazy about this building is like, you have an awesome foyer, you have a great auditorium, but where are you gonna put kids? So we had to take this lobby, this foyer area, and we had to like configure a kids building. So what we did is we took these benches, you see these little, they still got the same benches, man. These bad boys are over a decade old. We had these benches and we'd line them up to kind of block out a little room here. And we took these curtains and we set these curtains all up. We had one kid's room over here. We had another kid's room on the other side over there. And that was our kids building. So we had kids. And these benches seemed like a good idea. You think they'd keep all the kids in, but every once in a while you have a kid little hop a bench and take off sprinting down there. I'd be like preaching sometimes. And I'd see kids running down the aisles and you have a dream team running after them to grab a kid before the parents even saw it. So not the safest setup back in those days, but it was a setup. And I remember we'd come up here and right over here, this is where we'd have the kids check-in, i.e. welcome center. They were kind of 2-in-1 configuration. Right here is where all the kids would check in, and that's where they'd have it. We'd have coffee set up over there. But I remember, yeah, every single Sunday I'd wake up wondering if anybody's gonna come to church, and I'd stand right at that door and I was like our greeter. But this is also the place that I remember feeling like we're a real church for the first time. I remember there's a picture we have. This lobby was filled, but I remember just feeling, looking at how many people are in the lobby, and I go, man, I feel like a church. It was the first time I actually ever felt like, okay, this is more than just something we're praying about, something we're vision casting for. It's now something we're actually doing and something we're living. And I just, for the first time, it was just like a confirmation in my spirit. All right, God's got this, and it's gonna be something very special. And I remember walking into this auditorium and it felt like huge.
Yeah.
I mean, like massive, like, I mean, we had 21 people,
Right.
counting kids. So that was our launch team.
Yeah, and we didn't know that anybody would show up to our first
Yes.
service. So.
I remember walking in here and I remember telling Ernest, you rope off every single row, but like 3 at the front. Because I'm like, I don't want nobody sitting back here. And you'd still have people, a couple people sitting all the way in the back, and nobody else would be in this whole place. And I remember being so nervous whether anybody was going to show up to church and whether we could fill it. But I also remember thinking, this is way better tech than a church plant could ever get.
True.
Way better sound than what we had already purchased. Way better soundboard. So we were really excited about that. But I remember coming in here and just being so like overwhelmed, thinking, gosh, are we gonna be able to fill this place? I remember being excited. I remember sitting right here on the steps with the Hey Goods and us talking about it. And they go, well, you wanna use it? We go, yeah. And they go, name your price. They're such a blessing. That's what they said. Just tell us what you wanna pay. And I just spit out a number. I didn't even know what to say. I just spit out a number and they go, well, all right, let's do it. And that was how we got into this building. And I remember I would preach right here. I'd preach in the front. I never really would preach from on the stage. And I used to walk along these steps a lot too, because you know me, I'm a pacer, so I can't ever. And I'd preach right here. And usually we'd sit front row for worship, and then I'd preach right here at the front. And that was kind of the early days, right? I remember Mike and Mel came the second Sunday we were here.
And never left.
And never left.
Nope.
Tyler came, I think, 4 Sundays in. He came to the very first Easter we had in this building. Tyler came here. And this is kind of where some of the core and the foundation of our team started being built, was right in this building, in this room. It's when we started really being a church and defining kind of the the culture that God was placing on Bloom. And then I remember when I got the call that they weren't going to continue buying it or renew their owner financing agreement.
Winterize it.
And the owners that had it beyond the hay goods decided they didn't want to keep it open. They're going to winterize it and try to sell it outright. And they said, you guys got 3 months to find a place to go. I remember at the time, we're probably about 60 people. And we've only been in this building for 9 months. And I am panicking. I'm like, where are we going to go? Where are we going to be? Like we finally were starting to get some rhythm and some momentum. And I started the search of trying to figure out where we were going to go from this place on. And it was a stressful time. It was a completely delusional time because we had no money. And I'm looking at buildings that were so far beyond what we could afford. Me and Ernest would show up. Ernest would come with me and look at buildings, and we were all over town. And it was the start of, I think, some real big faith. We had a lot of faith coming into this, but that was the start where faith really took an overdrive in our church, where we started seeing not just some small miracles, but monumental miracles take place. I got 30 days to be out of the Americana building. I get a call from one of the commercial realtors we're looking at and goes, Mike, I think I found a building for you. And I go, okay. He goes, it's in the shops of Branson Meadows. And I remember going, dude, they're not gonna let us in. I go, you know how many years I've been trying to get in the shops of Branson Meadows? I toured buildings. I used to prayer walk that thing, asking. And they wouldn't let anything in but retail because they had some Branson shows that kind of didn't work in their property. So they're like, only retail, that's it. And then he goes, they just sold the building this week and I have the perfect spot for you. And I remember showing up to that building for the first time going, oh my goodness, this is actually possible. I remember our realtor brought us into this building right here. I'd never been in here before. I was actually looking at another space in this shopping center. I remember walking in and there was no stage, no lights, but we had stadium seating right here. And I remember going, we can make this work. And we put these little bar can type of lights up, like homemade, like as homemade as you could get lights. That's all we could get in here. And that was how we kind of made this space work, configured. But I remember coming into this room going, all right, we actually have a permanent place to call ourselves home. Like, this is permanent. So this is our welcome center. So we have welcome written up here. Ernest is the one that put in all this wood. He put up all this wood to make it look good. And this was literally mirrored. We have the same on the other side. This was our lobby. You walk around, here's what's our bathrooms. We had a big feature wall right here. And this was a lobby. And this literally was the full footprint of this building. This was our coffee area. So this is where we had the coffee side. So we had welcome center on one side, coffee on the other side. And this was backstage. Right here was our production room. So this is where we did all our video cameras, all of the feed. This is kind of where we set up for when we had our portable campus. This was where it streamed from. Then you came back here, we had a bathroom, of course, no big deal. This was kind of our storage space. And then this was like a little sitting area. We had a little sitting area right here, and that would go outside. And then this was the infamous green room. We built oh, come on, they're still here, dude. We built these these seats in here. This was the green room, so this is where the bed. Look, check this out. Come on. The scripture's still there.
Oh my gosh. There's our
Look,
scripture.
the guitar case stand, that's still there. And we didn't have office space in here. So if I ever had to have a serious conversation or a meeting with people, we'd sit right here, and this was the meeting space, this was the conference room, this is where we kind of had our meetings with people, our one-on-one was kind of sitting in here.
The light with the drum head.
Oh, the light with the drum out.
Still there.
And then over here, this was the cry room and the nursing mother's room. But before services, this is where I would do my sermon prep. So I would be in this room because we didn't have any other space, no offices. And I would sit right over here. We had like a little rocking chair. I'd sit right over in this little rocking chair before services. This is where I do all my sermon prep, in this room right here. Oh man. And then I'd come out right out here. This is the boom. Right onto the stage. So I remember I told Bob, I go, we got a great place to meet. Auditorium. We have seats. But where are we gonna put the kids? And Bob's like, he was our realtor. He goes, I got the perfect place for you. And so he takes us back. Check this out. And I think it's just like, I think it's maybe just these doors over here. Oh, no. Follow me. We're still going. Come on. Not done yet. Come on, keep on going. Keep following me. Come on. This is where our kids facility was for the very first few years of being here. Don't mind the 60-foot drop to your death. We'd have signs and we would block this off. We'd have signs that says, you're almost there. Oh, don't mind the big garbage dump over here. Oh yes, the garbage dump still existed. Didn't necessarily have the garbage cans out here, but the garbage dump still existed. Do you see these air conditioner units? They still were there. We'd put big signs right here to try to block the air conditioner units so you couldn't see them. And right here was the door to our very first kids facility. I would tell parents, I go, guys, it's the safest place in the world because nobody knows the kids are back there. That was my pitch to parents. It's safe because nobody knows. That was our first kids facility for actually a couple years here at Bloom. And then we got led to this building right next to us opening up, and we thought it was ginormous. We thought it was like the biggest space ever opened up to us. And that would become what was our kids facility for the next 3 or 4 years. We were feeling big time because we had 1, 2, 3, and a big space of rooms for kids. We went from no space for kids to what we thought was the biggest space ever for kids.
This is where like all of children's ministry for me started, was in this building.
This out here was actually our lobby because there was no room inside. So we had 5 services at one point with about 10 minutes between services. So just enough time to get everybody out and get the next group in. So this was our lobby.
It was kind of a cool feeling, and that's when we really kind of started taking off for the first time ever. And then it brought us from this place on the 2nd Sunday of December in 2019. We launched for the first time in our current building. And I remember whenever I started praying over this building, everybody thought I was crazy. People come up, you do not want the Kirby building. But yet I could still picture what it's gonna be like to have this place filled with people. Still pictured what it was gonna be like to be worshiping and seeing how many people's hands were raised towards Jesus, giving him praise. I could picture it. I could picture what it was gonna be like, have kids over in the kids facility and all of that. And that's the great thing about vision. Vision doesn't see what the world sees. It doesn't see what it is in the present. It sees what it can be in the future. And that's why the Bible says without vision, people perish or run wild. A lot of times when we don't have vision, we run in all the directions the world tells us. We run in all the directions our emotions want us to go. We run in all the directions that our flesh wants us to live in. We give into temporary satisfactions. We give into things that are beneath our potential. But man, vision allows you to see beyond just the present. It allows you to see where you're going. And this is a church I think has always been built on vision. When there was 7 people in a living room, there was vision. When it was in the Barrington, there was vision. When we were Portable Church in the Americana, we had vision. I thought we were gonna fill that whole room. When we moved to Tower Theater, there's vision. No stage, nothing, but I could picture people there. I could picture it being filled. When we moved here, vision. And I think that's what the next 10 years is gonna be. We're gonna plant 10 churches in the next 10 years. We're gonna be multipliers. We're a Great Commission church, which means we are multipliers. And we're gonna really see God multiply and do the impossible. I really believe it, and I'm excited about it. I think that individually, we're gonna take the responsibility to disciple those that are younger in their faith, to see them be everything they can be and invite people. I think corporately, we're gonna plant churches and we're gonna father and mother leaders to really expand the kingdom of God. We're gonna pastor cities. I think this is gonna be a 10 years where we're gonna look back, and I think 10 and 10 is gonna be a small dream. I think we're gonna look back and go, man, we did way more than 10. We had way bigger impact. We did a lot more, and we're gonna see transformation cities and churches and pastors and leaders, and most importantly, we're gonna see heaven get bigger and hell get smaller. And a lot of people live their God-given calling, the freedom in Jesus, and live up to the potential God placed inside of them. They're gonna have vision. Something about when you have vision, it inspires other people to have vision. I wanna be a church that has vision to inspire other people to walk in their God-given vision. I'm excited about the next 10 years.